Hello everyone, this video is going to be a little different than my other videos. I am reviewing the book Redeeming Love by Francine Rivers, and I think there are a lot of people out there with opinions on this book. Some people love it and encourage people to read it, and other people are on the extreme opposite and are like, no, don't read it. I think with books like these, you have to be, you have to know who this book is for, the audience this book is written for, and who you're recommending a book like this for. I've only read the prologue so far, but I figured I would keep you guys updated as I continue to read. For sure, I would put trigger warnings before even reading this book. I know it covers hard topics. The book is loosely based on the story of Hosea. Reading it, I can see how some people are upset with the book and how it's slightly twisted, because if you're reading the book and just reading the back, it's definitely a story about God's redeeming love, and it's shown in these characters, and we'll see like how that plays out and see if my opinion stays the same. But the book of Hosea is also see the heartache that God's people put on him, and that's why Hosea that's why God had Hosea live his life out the way that he had. Like, he was having Hosea understand the pain that we put God through. So just even reading this prologue, I would say I would say definitely has trigger warnings. If you have any sort of child trauma, I would definitely be hesitant to recommend this book to anyone who has child trauma, who has ever been abused, who has ever been sexually abused. Because even that first prologue, reading it, it's very heavy, and the writing's good. I think it's well written. It's just like there have been other books that brought up things like that where you don't feel it, but like her writing style, like you can feel it. You can feel the emotion behind everything that's happening, and it's heavy. It's a heavy book, and I just read the prologue. I read the first 44 pages, and it's very heavy. So definitely right off the back, I would definitely give this a trigger warning. I would not recommend this to everyone. I would say that's probably the biggest thing when it comes to this book. I think so many people are quick to recommend without understanding, like, this could set someone back. This can trigger some PTSD for some people, and I think that's kind of where I stand so far, and that's only with the prologue. And that's pretty much my kind of guide for any book. Like, I try and think about, like, would I, like, you can't recommend everything to everyone because everyone goes through their own struggles. Everyone has gone through their own trauma. So I think we just need to think about that. And I think everyone has their own personal convictions and boundaries that they set for themselves to keep themselves in line with God. And I think it's hard to recommend certain books when you don't know someone. I think it's hard to say everyone needs to go out and read this book, it's so great. I think recommending this book to the wrong person can cause a lot of harm. So I think that's kind of where I stand right now, but we'll see what I think as I get deeper into the book. It's very heavy though. It's not a book where you're reading it and you're like, oh, I'm loving this story. Like, my heart is heavy, my heart is full. But I'm also a little bit of an emotional reader and an emotional person in general. So let's see what I think as we go through this book. It's gonna be kind of vlog style, reading vlog. So yeah, I'm interested to see how she takes this and how she takes the story of Hosea. Because we're looking at, if you think about it, we're looking at the perspective of, it's just different. So I'm gonna keep reading and then we can talk more later. I feel like right now I'm giving you guys a play-by-play of this book, and that's not the point of this. This is supposed to be a review. But we just met Michael Hosea, chapter 2. I'm really not that far into this book, but it's interesting. I'm interested to see how this all plays out and how this goes with the story of Hosea. I think the story's picking up, and I'm interested to see how she goes about this and how she ties everything in. I'm gonna keep reading, and yeah. So it's still the same day. I just figured I would update you guys. So far, I really like the book. I like the writing. I like the storyline, the plot, like everything about it. It's a good book so far. I'm about a third of the way through. A fourth. It's a big book. but I am really enjoying it. I think tonight I'm also gonna read through the book of Hosea, just so that way I can kind of like be refreshed and kind of compare the two. But I figured I'd update you guys, and then I guess I will talk to you guys in the morning once I'm further into the book with more thoughts. Hello everyone. It's the next morning and still enjoying the book. I really do like the book itself, but I want to share with you guys some stuff that I got from Amazon since it just came in. So I got these little bookmarks. They're almost like little buds. Can you see that? Let me see if I prop you here. They're little leaf buds. And they're very cute because you can stick them they're for a bookmark, and you just kind of dangle it like that. They're very cute. They're very cute. I just thought this would look cute like lined up back there, and all my books have like little bud on them. I also bought this USB book light because sometimes I like to read at night, but then I have to keep my light on and it's just kind of obnoxious, and if I'm not reading on my phone I need to be able to see, so we're gonna try that. I got this new pencil case, so we'll see how I like that. I got it in a tan and white. And then I also bought a book, and this is The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. So this is just what it looks like. I've just seen a lot of people talk about it, and I've been wanting to read it and get back into like fantasy type books, so that's that. Yeah, so I'm gonna get back to reading. I'm still really liking the book. It's going good. I'm making my way through it. It's a big book. So yeah. Hello everyone, it is Monday morning and I'm picking up the book again. It's been a little bit. I wasn't able to read a lot over the weekend, but I'm picking up the book and I'm reading, and we got to a part where it's getting good. I'm really enjoying this book so far, and I'm really just loving the just the way she's going about it. I would say this relates less to the story of Hosea and more just the story of God and his redeeming love in our lives. You know, besides his name being Michael Hosea and God telling him to marry a prostitute, I think it's definitely more of symbolizing God's redeeming love in our life versus the story of Hosea. But I just read one part where, hopefully I'm not spoiling too much of the book, I just thought this was interesting. She goes, I don't want to be a part of some great eye in the sky who's waiting for a chance to squash me like a bug. And then he said, God doesn't condemn, he forgives. And then she said, the way he forgave my mother. And he goes, maybe she never forgave herself. And I'm just like, wow, how many of us are like that, where we're struggling with something and we're constantly feeling God's judgment, but really we're the ones judging and God's just calling us home. I have been like marking a couple pages for when I do my review with you guys, and I can talk to you guys about it. So yeah, so I'm gonna keep reading. Hello guys, I'm back with another update. I'm almost done with the book. I have less than a quarter of the way to go, and I'm really enjoying it. I've actually added more tabs. This is the first time I've ever like not annotated, but kind of like put notes in a book that wasn't a grow your faith type of book, so interesting. But I'm really enjoying it, and I think the author's doing a great job at explaining God's redeeming love and how he changes you and changes your heart. I've yet to read the story of Hosea because I wanted to refresh my mind on that, but I think overall as a book about God's redeeming love, spot on. I think it's great so far. Honestly, with the way some people would speak about this book, I was expecting it to be more explicit. I feel like a lot of people were complaining because Francine Rivers, I'm pretty sure, correct me if I'm wrong, used to write probably just romance books that had some spice in it, but and people were saying that really mixed into her writing, but I don't see that at all. I think she's done a beautiful job at like portraying a married couple. I don't see nothing wrong with this book so far, besides that I think it should have a trigger warning, just like most books do naturally, like if they do discuss like sex trafficking, child abuse, trauma, things like that. I do think it needs that, because if you have been traumatized before in your life, in your youth, I think you just reading about it sometimes can bring up things. My mom's loud, so hopefully you guys can't hear her. But yeah, I'm really enjoying it, and I think it's a great book overall. So, woo. Wow. I'm a very emotional reader, and I hate reading books that make me cry. I only have the epilogue left, but I needed a moment because of the tears. I really like this book. I think I'll probably wait till tomorrow to give you guys my full thoughts and just give you guys a full review of the book. And I won't be crying when I do that, because this is not cute. I finished the book and I started reading through the actual book of Hosea, and so that's what I'm doing. I can say that I am emotionally drained. I'll update you guys in the morning for my full review of this book. I feel like giving a book review is hard sometimes, especially on a book that has so many opinions, and sometimes I feel like it's hard for me to find exactly what I want to say and say it the right way. So just a little warning. Hello. So we're gonna talk about my final review on the book Redeeming Love by Francine Rivers. Starting off, I really enjoyed it. I would give it a 5 stars. I really like this book, but I don't think it's a book that you can recommend to anyone. I don't think this is a book for everyone. I don't think everyone needs to read it. Just because I'm saying I like this book, I don't think you need to go out and read this book. I do think that there should be some trigger warnings saying that, you know, topics that are going to be included are triggering to those that have had childhood trauma, sexual abuse, things along that nature, because those things do take place. She's not going into like gory details, but they are being mentioned. There are like flashbacks, so you do know what's going on, what happened to her and stuff like that. So I would say, you know, you have to be cautious when you pick up any book, but with this book I would definitely say if you have any of those triggers, don't read this book. In the back of the book, it says, a powerful retelling of the story of Gomer and Hosea. Redeeming Love is a life-changing story of God's unconditional, redemptive, and all-consuming love. I would not agree that this is a retelling of the story of Hosea and Gomer. She does go into like, you know, background context of what happened to Angel, who is the one that is in prostitution and stuff. But in the book of Hosea, we don't get her background, because it's talking about, you know, God telling Hosea to marry a prostitute, because this is, the prostitute is representing Israel and what they're doing to God, how they're going out and choosing idols and choosing man over God, choosing the things of this world over God. And I think obviously this is a fictional book, so she had to include things to make it. I wouldn't have called it a retelling of Gomer and Hosea. I would have said that after reading the book, she was inspired by the characters and created a fictional story. I would say this is a good representation of God's redeeming love. I know a lot of people are like, you know, that the man is representing Hosea, and or not Hosea, that like God, and how he's showing her redeeming love, but he's not. God takes a big part in this book, and I don't think there is any point where the author is trying to say that Hosea is representing God in giving her redeeming love. No, he's supposed to be representing Hosea, because God is included in this book. And at one point, hopefully it's not a spoiler, at one point she does make Hosea a god in her life. They address that, they go through it. So I do think that it's a great book on God's redeeming love. I just wouldn't call it a retelling of the book of Hosea, the story of Hosea and Gomer, at all. I think besides the fact that his name is Michael Hosea and she is supposed to represent Gomer, the prostitute, and that he was told to marry a prostitute, I think that's where the similarities end. But I do think this was a great book. I know a lot of people had issues with them saying that she turned her trauma into sin. No, I'm actually reading another book. When People Are Big and God is Small, and he actually addressed something in it which I thought was interesting. He says just basically how, like, you know, trauma is not sin in our life, but there is still sin in our life. Okay, so let me just read from here. It says he's just talking about he had like a case study of a woman who was sexually abused and you know, traumatized as a child. Okay, let me start from here. It says, does this sound like I'm being too hard on Janet? I hope not. The story of the Old Testament is one in which God condemns injustice and oppression. So then it goes, so all counsel given to Janet must be filled with compassion for her and anger over the injustice she suffered. Otherwise, it's not biblical counsel. And then he goes, does it sound like I'm accusing Janet's sin? I hope not. Such a tragic history does not mean that we ignore sin in Janet's life. To do that would mean that her victimization problem is deeper than her sin problem. And the truth is, there's nothing deeper than our own sinfulness. So I think this author did a great job of explaining her trauma and giving us the backstory of it, but also showing how that affected her life and how she dealt with certain things, and how after being pulled out of that life, she still made choices that were sinful. Her trauma wasn't sin. Some of her choices were sinful. And they do go into explaining that none of this was her fault. Where this is like, because we get all this context about her life, it's not like she chose the life of prostitution. She was kind of sold into it. So I think that's, you know, we don't get that background in the Bible. So yeah, I think some people, I was expecting going into this book because I guess Francine Rivers was a, you know, secular author before, you know, wrote spicy scenes and all that stuff. So a lot of people said that they felt like that spilled into this book. And I think when reading books like this, we have to remember that God convicts us all differently. We all have personal convictions, and God convicts personally. I personally did not feel like any of this was overly sexual, even any of the scenes, because they weren't really scenes. You just know that they did it. I guess people had a problem with her, like, I don't know. I just felt like it was, I did not have issue with it. Like, now I'm like, I did not notice it, and I went in expecting there to be a lot more things like that than I found. But then again, everyone is sensitive to different things, and this might affect someone more than it affects me. And that's why I say we have to be careful, especially because it is coming from a Christian author. I feel like we judge things more because they come from Christian authors, and it's because, you know, we're all held to a higher standard. And I just felt like this, yeah, I just wish she wouldn't have said this was like a retelling of Hosea and Gomer. I wish she would have just said this is a story of God's redeeming love, because I can see God in here. I can see the world's effect in our lives in this. I can see how trauma plays into your life, how forgiveness and all that stuff can play into our lives. So I really enjoyed the book. I'm trying to think if there was anything else. I still, like I said, I still wouldn't consider this a book that I would recommend to everyone. There's a lot of books I wouldn't recommend to everyone. I think you need to do your research, and I don't think you need to do your research by reading this book and then deciding if it's for you or not. I think if you know people that have read it, if they're openly saying you need to read this book, I wouldn't. I think when they recommend books to people and stuff, you need to know who you're recommending the book to and stuff like that. Like, I can't recommend this book blindly because I don't know what people have gone through. I don't know traumas people have gone through. So for me to say this is a book everyone needs to read, no. There's a lot of people that if they asked me if they should read this book, I would just flat out tell them no, because I know more about their lives. And then there's other people where I don't know what they've gone through, and I would still tell them no. I think they need to do a full research on the book, and just really, you know, talk to people who have read the book and see what they say. I do highly stand with the fact that this book does need trigger warnings, because even after reading the prologue, my heart was heavy. It was burden filled. I just, you know, I felt it. So I couldn't imagine having gone through any sort of trauma and then having read that, because I'm like, I haven't. And I was still like, wow, emotion filled. So that is my review on the book. I really enjoy it. I'm not out here telling you guys to run out and get it. I definitely think this is just like any book, you have to do your research, and that's something I'm learning, is that I have to do more research on the books I read, because sometimes I can just pick up a book and read it and it's like, oh, well, that wasn't a great book, but I guess I'm reading it. I'll say do your research, know your boundaries, and listen to the Holy Spirit's guiding when reading books. If you're not a Christian and you just wanted to know about this, same thing. I think everyone has their own preferences when it comes to reading, and I think you just need to go by that. Watch a few reviews. There's a lot of people that are like gun-ho against this, and then there's other people that are all for it, and I think you need to find someone that's in the middle that's going to tell you what they really think. I think this is an excellent book, but I don't think everyone needs to read it. It's not written for everyone. So yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you want to see more book reviews and videos like this, definitely let me know. If there's any books that you have been thinking about reading or want opinions on, I can definitely look into it and see if it's a book that I would be willing to read and give you guys a review. I have a whole bunch of books. These are just like my books for the moment. Ignore the mess. Those are just my books for the moment, but like I have tons of books that I'm reading throughout the month, throughout the year, and I would love to share that with you guys. So definitely let me know if you guys enjoyed this video, if you enjoyed the review, what your opinion is on this book, if you enjoyed it, if you didn't enjoy it. And I'm open to all opinions. I don't care. I understand that some people don't like it, and I can see why people wouldn't like it. Let's have a conversation down below, and I will see you guys in my next video.